Hello and welcome into today's edition of the Arizona State Sun Devils Insider Podcast. I am Kevin Hicks and I'm the lead beat writer for Arizona State Sun Devils on SI on this beautiful Wednesday morning. And I am joined once again by Tanner Capolini, who joined me last week to kind of give us a rundown on the 2025 Sun Devil football season. Tanner, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, Kevin. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about some more Sun Devil football today.
Awesome, dude. Yeah. Um, As you all know, in Sun Devil faithful, Arizona State has gone up north to Payson, uh, local city for those that are out of state, to for Camp Tontezona. It's been a tradition at Arizona State since 1959 when Frank Kush, obviously the coach that took the Sun Devils to the next level when it came to competition. They moved up from to the Pac 8 at that time, and it has really been pretty much yearly tradition ever since. There were a few years in which they did not make the trip, but Kenny Dillingham obviously embraces going up there as a guy who grew up locally, a guy that grew up going to Sun Devil games. He has that holds a special place in his heart, and it's going to be great to see what those guys can do. The fans are going to get an opportunity to see them scrimmage on Saturday morning, and one of the major focuses of this week is obviously Sam Leavitt. The quarterback is going into his redshirt sophomore season after a dynamic, electric breakout 2024 season that nobody really saw coming. And that 29 total touchdown season where he really showed flexed his chops as a dual threat quarterback, really has the college football world clamoring, giving him Heisman Trophy consideration in the preseason, and it also has NFL scouts really clamoring about him as well. As we know, there were 10 teams that showed up for Arizona State practice on Monday, and that is a record for the Kenny Dillingham era, and it can be presumed that a lot of people were there to watch Sam Leavitt, like perhaps the Rams, perhaps some other teams in the fold, and that's the perfect segue into today's topic. We're going to be discussing NFL teams that really could be strong fits for the strong arm quarterback. So uh, let's start off with you, Tanner. What's a team that you believe is a strong fit for Sam Leavitt at the pro level?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned the Los Angeles Rams because that's my first team, and the what I'm talking about today. Some of the teams will be the same, some of them will be different. But I did a piece earlier on ASU on SI where I talked about NFL fits for Sam Leavitt. Make sure to check that out as well as Kevin and I's other pieces on Sam Leavitt and ASU as a whole. But I did want to shout that out because I had a lot of fun writing that article, and one of the reasons is I think that the Rams are just such a great fit for Leavitt. You look at the Rams here, you have Matthew Stafford, who I think is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, but he's getting up there in age. There was talks about could Stafford retire this offseason. He is back, but this could be his last season. And going into next year, the Rams have two first-round picks because they kind of did some trading back. So they have both of those. And I just think that this would be a great fit for Leavitt. You really look at that Sean McVay offense that has just been so instrumental in so many quarterback success in the NFL. We saw Jared Goff really find comfortability in that offense. Goff came out 2016, his rookie season was with a Jeff Fish offense. Goff did not look good at all. The next year, Sean McVay comes in and Goff looked like a great quarterback, and he's had a good career. You look at Stafford, finally getting Matthew Stafford that Super Bowl ring. The Sean McVay system, I also think, has a lot of parallels to what Kyle Shanahan runs, and we've seen Kyle Shanahan's system help out guys like Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, help turn Jimmy G into a Super Bowl appearing quarterback. So this offense has just worked throughout the NFL. There's so many more examples of it spreading. But I do want to talk about why I think this is a great fit for Leavitt. I think one thing you talk about this system is their emphasis on play action. And I did a recent piece on this, so make sure to check it out. But play action, I think, is perfect for Leavitt because with play action, the quarterback has the opportunity to boot out, to run, to make some stuff happen. I think Leavitt's legs are a good part of his game, and I think that is something that I think could be used at the next level. So I just think in terms of that, I also do think, too, Leavitt is a really good quarterback at the college level. But there is always kind of a time of transitioning from college to the NFL. We have seen that where it's very rare that a guy comes out and has a awesome rookie season. Jane Daniels and Bo Nix were kind of the exception last year. Sometimes it is a bit more of a transitional time, especially with the strong arm quarterbacks. Right, we saw Caleb Williams, who was a strong arm guy. He took a bit. Josh Allen, took a bit. Some guys hit the road running, but more often than not, it's a transitional time. And I do think that this McVay system would help Leavitt transition. Even if Matthew Stafford doesn't retire, Leavitt learning under Stafford would be a huge, huge pro for him. So then, yeah, so that's kind of the main thing. I also think as well some other additional notes is you have a great cast. You have Puka Nakua. You have good playmakers. Also think, too, the LA media at times can be, there's a lot of pressure in just LA as a whole. And I do think Leavitt um, does seem like just a really good dude, very calm, very chill. Kind of reminds me of Justin Herbert, who's the LA Chargers quarterback. So that's kind of another reason, not as much as a big reason for the scheme fit. But yeah, I think the LA Rams, that would be such a fun move. And I could see that happening. Like I said, they have a draft capital. We have seen in the Sean McVay era that their front office has been aggressive in free agency and trading. So yeah, that's my first team I have for Sam.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Um, I could very much see a world. I know that not everybody has a first round grade on Sam Levitt right now, but it's trending that way. And if he has as good of a season or better this year compared to last year, he probably will find himself there. And truthfully, if you look at all the other quarterbacks that are projected in the first round, such as like a Lenore Sellers, a Garrett Nussmeier, uh, I would say Garrett Nussmeier is probably the most natural fit for what McVay has like looked for over his career. I mean, he didn't really pick Jared Goff, but he
Hmm.
adapted very well to Jared Goff. I feel like Nussmeier is more that like Stafford Goff tier in terms of like a guy that can make every throw in the book, but they also have moments where there's really some confounding decisions with the ball and all that. But I feel like Levitt could be just as beneficial to the Rams as the Rams could be to him because he
Hmm.
brings an element that McVay really hasn't been able to tap into in terms of like running frequent RPOs, running zone reads, really using like a quarterback's legs to their advantage in that offense. And that could make the like you said like Puka Nakua, Devontae Adams, Tyler Higbee. There's some really solid weapons there already because a lot of the time when a quarterback gets picked that high, they're going to a team that's kind of bare bones when it comes to weapons and coaching and all that. Like you see like a Kyler Murray with the Cardinals, he went into the league with one of the least talented supporting casts. You look at a CJ Stroud. Obviously, the team developed around him nicely, but that was perceived to be a not so great situation when he was drafted. Usually, there's a learning curve, a lot to do that has a lot to do with that with situation. And Levitt would be in a great situation, and the Rams would be getting a quarterback that's probably pro ready, especially relative to his class and his age.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, I very much agree with you that that would be an ideal landing spot for him. So going off from the Rams, I wanted to go to another R team. I'm going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Uh, so I'm not in love with the Raiders as an organization still. I still believe that they have a lot to prove when it comes to making the right personnel decisions, the stability and all of that. But Pete Carroll being there makes me feel a lot better about the stability aspect. The main reason why I would like to see Levitt in Vegas is because of the future in terms of the weapons and the culture that Pete Carroll is building, hopefully there. Uh, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, that's a very, very strong foundational group on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that there would be seldom people that would say that a Levitt, Genty, Bowers trio would be something that they wouldn't want to see on a football field. That's just that would be very, very intriguing to watch. I also think that he would be a good fit for what they're looking to do currently, uh, schematically. Um, I mean, obviously, Geno Smith is in place there right now, but he is getting older. He's 34, I believe. So I don't think there's that much. Uh, wait, Chip Kelly is the Raiders OC right now, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, yeah. I think Chip Kelly would be great for Levitt. I think Levitt would be great for Chip Kelly. And obviously, like I said, Geno's still there. But that doesn't prelude a team from taking a quarterback, as you saw with Seattle. Seattle moved on from Geno. They invested in Sam Darnold for a short period, but they really had their eyes set on Jalen Milroe. And I believe that Levitt's a different caliber of prospect compared to a Jalen Milroe, personally.
Mm-hmm.
So get him in a Chip Kelly offense, sit behind Geno Smith for a year, maybe 2 years, which that would be pushing it really, like looking at the modern NFL. But getting him a set of weapons that's headlined by Jinty and Brock Bowers would be incredibly intriguing for me, especially in a Chip Kelly offense. Uh, what are your thoughts about that? Do you have another team in mind when it comes to Levitt?
Yeah, I have a couple more. I will respond to your Raiders thing. I think the big thing is you're in an AFC West with Mahomes and Herbert, who are two of the top seven quarterbacks in the NFL. You also have Bo Nix in that division, who could be in the top 10. So you really do need, I think, kind of one of these quarterbacks to compete in these games. And I do like the fit for Levitt. You mentioned the Geno Smith thing. I do think they gave him a 3-year deal, but you can always kind of restructure that, move on from it. I do like the idea of Levitt sitting maybe a year behind Geno. I think Geno's very experienced, and I do think that Levitt, his big thing is sometimes he'll maybe rush a throw or two, and I think sitting behind Geno, who has the NFL experience of not only success but failure, what it takes to succeed, I think that would be a good fit. I also had and we might do a future episode on this about where Jordan Tyson could go, and I did mention the Raiders. So that would be cool if you could get Tyson round one for Vegas and get Sam Levitt in round two, or you could do a trade up. And I think this is in play because I thought the Raiders last year were going to get a quarterback in the draft. I thought Will Howard was going to be a guy they were going to get, or Joe Milroe. They did get two quarterbacks, but they're more around 6'7", so I could see them getting a player of the future. And I think, yeah, it's a great cast, like you said. I think Bowers and Levitt would have a really good chemistry, and I do think Levitt is one of those guys who can make the mobile plays, has a big arm, can compete in that division. And I think he'll just fit well with Pete Carroll. In Pete Carroll's time in Seattle, he worked with Russell Wilson, who was mobile. Now, Russ is more mobile than Sam Levitt, but kind of that type of quarterback he's used to as well. So, yeah, I like that Raiders fit a lot. I think that would be not only a good fit for just a team, but also a good fit for Sam because he's Sam Levitt because he's going to a good situation. So the next team I have here, I have the Indianapolis Colts, who seem like as a whole things could be different next season at the level of GM, head coach, and quarterback. At least quarterback. The other two we'll see, but you have Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones. I was very high on Anthony Richardson coming out. Unfortunately, he has not really worked out. Injuries and just the consistency has not really been there. I do think Daniel Jones is a solid quarterback, but not one of the future. And I think Sam Levitt would be a great fit. For starters, I think this is, like we've mentioned for the other two teams, I think this is a really, really good cast of players. And you could argue probably the best group of players we have mentioned. You have yourself Jonathan Taylor, who I think is a top 7 running back. You have yourself Tyler Warren, who I think could be possibly on the same levels of Brock Bowers after his rookie year. I'm a huge Michael Pittman guy, very good possession receiver. You have yourself Alec Pierce, who's a good down the field threat. You have Josh Downs, who's really agile, really speedy. You also have Adonai Mitchell, who we'll see if he can get things figured out, but I do like him. The O-line, they did lose some guys. We still have Quentin Nelson, one of the best offensive linemen in football. So coming with a good group of weapons for Sam Levitt. I also think, too, that the Colts have been trying to get the quarterback position down here for a while, for the
Almost a
past couple
decade.
seasons. Yeah. So I think that yeah, that would be a good fit there for the culture. You have that mobility, you have that quick release. Even if they move on from Shane Steichen, even if they keep Shane Steichen, I think he would fit Steichen's system well. Because Steichen likes to do some of the RPO stuff. I know we kind of mentioned with the Rams, a bit different. His system's a bit different than McVay, but some of that stuff. So yeah, I like the Colts a lot for Levitt. I know a lot of people having them go Arch Manning. The Peyton Manning. His nephew Arch Manning could. That would be a fun storyline, but we'll see how Arch Manning does. But at the end of the day, I do think Levitt could be a good fit for the Colts.
I agree with that. The even like you said, even if Shane Steichen stays around, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing because I think that Steichen is probably more of the coach that he was in 2023 in his rookie season than he
Yeah.
showed last season.
I.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I really think that he does have a lot of good philosophies. I think that he's a strong leader. I just think that the wheels kind of fell off for the Colts last season. I think that that was more due to the incompetence in the management side of things. And I think Levitt would bring a lot of stability there. Uh, he could be. I'm not saying he's Andrew Luck, but he could be like drafting him could make Colts fans feel as good as they have ever since Andrew Luck retired out of nowhere. As we know, they really have gone on a circuit of various quarterbacks from various walks over the last 7 to 8 years. So yeah, I think that that would be a good spot for him. And I'm just going to pile up my last two that I have right now. I'm going to double up on them. I'm going to say the New York Giants for my number two spot as a good fit, and I'm going to say the Arizona Cardinals for my number three. So when it comes to the Giants, I know that they probably will give Jackson Dart every chance in the books to take over as a franchise quarterback after spending so many years on Daniel Jones and it not working out. You really don't want to spend a first round pick on a player that you're only going to give 1 year to prove himself on. Obviously, we've seen that before with the Cardinals and Josh Rosen, but hypothetically, if the Giants bottom out this year for some reason, they haven't. I'm going to say this: the Giants are a talented team. There is
Mm-hmm.
a lot of talent to like on the roster, but they have an exceptionally difficult schedule. What if they bottom out, go 3-14 or 4-13, something like that? That leads to Joe Shane and Brian Dable both getting the boot. Chances are that new head coach and GM combo that comes in is going to want to bring in their own guy at quarterback. And if they have a record that poor, that probably puts them in prime position to get a Sam Levitt, especially if Levitt continues to boost his draft stock. Just looking at it like on paper, you're going to have Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scadaboo that stack at running back, that lightning thunder combo. Uh, that's something that I believe is getting kind of
Underrated.
yeah subdued at this point. I believe that not enough people are giving proper credence to that duo as something that could work out. I think people are overlooking it. Um, And then you obviously have Malik Neighbors and Wandale Robinson at receiver. You have a decent offensive line. There's stuff to like there. But obviously, like for in terms of Sun Devil fans, getting Levitt and Scadaboo back together would be something that
Mm-hmm.
would set the Arizona State fandom on fire. Those pe- every single person in that fan base would go insane if that happened. Uh, and I think it's really a strong fit in terms of like let's say you bring in an offensive minded head coach. Let's say you bring in a general manager that's really focused on uh, building the roster around Levitt instead of I feel like the Giants spent too many years trying to build the roster in just a I guess a whatever rhyme or reason way instead of very like pointed. I just feel like it's clobbering a lot of talent together with really no purpose. If that makes sense. Um, let's just say they do that and they get Sam Levitt. Really, the NFC East, future wise, is looking wide open. Obviously, the Eagles have done a great job of roster management. They're probably not
Mm-hmm.
going anywhere. long term. But besides them, like the NFC West, the NFC East is usually open every single year in terms of who's the winner. There's rarely ever a repeat champion. The Commanders are kind of in limbo right now, even with Jaden Daniels on a rookie contract. They're having problems with roster management. Obviously, Terry McLaurin is not happy. So, realistically, the Cowboys are in no man's land. They really haven't done anything or been a serious threat in a while. Dak Prescott's locked into a long-term deal, and he's only getting older from here on out. Micah Parsons asked out. There's a lot of issues in that division, and the Giants really have a unique opportunity to really climb up from the gutter of the division to being a consistent playoff threat if they play their cards right. And I believe that Sam Leavitt could be one of those players that's a missing piece there. And as for the Cardinals, I'm a big Kyler Murray fan. I believe that Kyler Murray is still a high level quarterback in the NFL when he's at his absolute best, but that's just the issue. The issue is that he really hasn't put together a complete full season of elite quarterback play in the NFL. And if things don't work out this season for the Cardinals, I believe that's time for them to start looking to move elsewhere and raise the ceiling that they have under Jonathan Gannon. And I believe that it's just a natural fit to transition from Kyler Murray to local Sam Leavitt, Arizona State hero. Uh, it. I can't say for certain that it would be a strong schematic fit because Drew Petzing could be on the chopping block as well if they have another disappointing season. It's not even a guarantee that him or Kyler Murray would go anywhere anyways, but hypothetically, if they did, I would be interested in seeing what the new OC hire is, and that probably would go a long way to telling you what direction they're looking to go to at quarterback, hypothetically. But I believe Sam Levitt would be a phenomenal fit when it comes to a potential connection with Marvin Harrison Jr., a Michael Wilson, a Trey McBride, much in the same vein as like a Brock Bowers or a Malik Neighbors. I believe that there are very few receivers that Sam Levitt wouldn't have a strong connection with. He's just one of those quarterbacks that's very, very proactive. He, it's obvious that he looks to build relationships with his offensive supporting cast. Uh, those are things that are very, very important, especially at the NFL level when he's coming in as a rookie against defenses that he really hasn't seen before in terms of different coverages they throw, the speed of the defense, the physicality of the defense. It would be important for him to build relationships with those guys very early on, and I believe Marvin Harrison would be a player that you would see a stronger connection with between compared to a Kyler Murray. Obviously, you have James Conner and Trey Benson in the backfield as well. He has great support there. You have a franchise left tackle in Paris Johnson Jr. You have a very solid, very good center and a Yelda Froholt. Um, there's just a lot to like there in terms of supporting cast, potential fit, uh, potential to be a factor in the NFC West while he's on a rookie contract. And Monty Austin has proven to be a very strong steward when it comes to handing out contracts to different free agents. So I believe the roster building wouldn't really be an issue uh, during that time as well. Yeah, that's really all I have to say on that. You could whatever thoughts you have in your last team, Tanner.
Yeah, there's a lot to say, but I do like both choices. In my piece, I actually did have the Cardinals, and I do like that fit for a couple of reasons. You know, Kyler Murray, when he's on it, he plays like one of the best QBs in the NFL. Unfortunately, though, more times than not, he plays like a top 12 quarterback instead of a top 5 one. And it's just a consistency that's really been the issue of Kyler Murray in Arizona. Last year, the Cardinals, I believe through like 7, 8 weeks, they were on top of the NFC West. Kyler Murray was playing like an MVP candidate. And he had a lot of really good games at the beginning of last year. You had the Week 1 Bills game, you had the Rams in Week 2, you had the Dolphins in Week 5, and then you had the Jets game later on. Like all four of those games, he played like a top quarterback. And we're like, okay, this is exciting. Then unfortunately, at the end of the season, the Cardinals go from top of the NFC West to missing out on the playoffs. Yes, I do know that Jonathan Gannon, head coach of the Cardinals, does say that he does like Kyler Murray, but Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort did not draft Kyler Murray. and I could see a situation where they move on from Kyler. I think that this is a big year for him coming up, and I think if the Cardinals and Kyle Murray, things don't go well, if there's a disappointing season, they could move off from Kyler. I do think Kyle Murray is a talented quarterback. I think he could go somewhere and start and be a good player, but I do like the Sam Leavitt fit for a couple of reasons. You do get, I think, a lot of the same stuff with Kyle Murray. Kyler is more mobile than Leavitt, but Leavitt is still mobile. I think Leavitt probably has a better arm talent in terms of like just how far can he throw it. I do think with Kyler, you've seen sometimes the over the middle of the field and some of the accuracies. I think Leavitt, I'm not saying he's more accurate right now, but I think his arm, he could hit more throws over the field for lack of a better word. Like, I think he just has more throws to have in his bag than Kyler does. Um, you mentioned the whole OC thing, Drew Petzing. I actually think he could be hired somewhere as a head coach. I know he was interviewed this past head coaching cycle. Teams are really high on him. I do like Drew Petzing. I think he's done some good stuff. If Petzing stays, I think Levitt would be a good fit because it's a Kyle Shanahan system. Mentioned earlier how he would fit that. If not, you could get a new OC. And I could see this making sense as well for the Cardinals' draft philosophy. This would be their third draft in the regime. The first year they went, the past 2 years they went defense and offense because the first year you got Marvin Harrison, okay, then you got Trey Benson, kind of got the offense figured out, and in the past draft they went Will Johnson, they went kind of O-line and D-line. So like, yeah, there are still holes on the Cardinals for sure, but it would make sense for them to get a quarterback. I do think Levitt would fit that. Jonathan Gannon always mentions about the explosive plays, the big plays, and Levitt sure does have that. And like you said, just the culture fit in Arizona. I think Kyler Murray, if you moved on from him, some fans would be a bit bummed out. I think bringing in someone like Sam Levitt would bring some joy, bring some happiness. And yeah, you mentioned the fit with the playmakers there. I don't want to repeat that, but I think that makes sense. Then going on to the Giants, when you mentioned that initially, I was a bit unsure, but I do like it. You know, at the end of the day, my main thing with the Giants is that you hired Brian Dable, who did a great job with Josh Allen, who is his physical quarterback with these great tools, and that's why you hired him to be the head coach. But yet, the Giants have never had a quarterback that has those physical traits. The ironic part of this is Dable could be gone after this season, and the Giants could draft Sam Levitt, who does have the physical traits that kind of Dable would like. But you know, Jackson Dart coming out, I mean, I think he's a good prospect, but if it's a new regime, they might want to move on and just say, hey, we didn't draft him. If Dart, has a season that he doesn't look that great, I don't know if he'll even play. Russ is starting week 1, and that might be a whole season thing. Levitt's definitely in play, like you mentioned, the players there. I could see that. I know Giants ownership is getting impatient, and they might just say, okay, Brian Dable, Joe Shane, thank you for being our head coach and GM. We're bringing in these people. They're coming in, and they like Sam Levitt. They say, hey, he's a guy who can get it done. I think Levitt is going to be a first-round pick. I just think the tools, and I can see that in New York. I think the Cardinals example you have about Rosen and then Kyle Murray is perfect, so I don't think there's a whole ton to expand on that. That was really well said there, Kevin, with that analogy with Arizona. So going on to my final team, this was a bit harder than I kind of was thinking. And I was trying to think, okay, what would be a good fit for Levitt? What would be a good fit for the team as well? And I initially had the other New York team, the Jets, in mind. I still do like that fit, and again, on the piece I did on ASU on SI, I do go more in depth with that. But I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers here to round off our team selections for a couple of reasons. First of all, this season they got Aaron Rodgers. I personally do like that move. I think, it's a good fit, but this is probably it for Rodgers as a career. I think that's kind of been all but said. This is it for Rodgers, but also the same with Mike Tomlin. There's a lot of reports coming out that this could be Mike Tomlin's last season. He could retire. He's been coaching for a while, and it could be a new era in Pittsburgh. And I think that they want to get the franchise guy. The NFL draft is in Pittsburgh next year, and I kind of my theory is that the Steelers are going to have a new head coach, and they're going to get a quarterback in round one. Kind of similar to this past year when the NFL draft was in Green Bay, and the Packers finally took a receiver in round one with Matthew Golden. I just think more often than not, when the NFL team hosts a draft, they like to make a move that surprises the fans, and the Steelers getting a new quarterback, getting a new era in there would be such a great move. I think besides that, you do look at playing in the cold. That is important for quarterbacks, and I do think Leavitt has the arm to rip through the cold air of Pittsburgh. I think that is a very important element. Like I mentioned, for the Raiders, you're in a tough division in the AFC North with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, who are two of the top four quarterbacks in the NFL, and Leavitt has the traits to possibly be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. So weather, division, it makes sense. Scheme wise, it's hard to say who's going to be the offensive coordinator there, who's going to be the head coach. But you have DK Metcalf. Again, I think Leavitt could have a good connection with him. I think, like you said, Leavitt is going to have a connection with most wide receivers. Also, like Caleb Johnson as well. I do want to shout out Caleb Johnson. They drafted him. I think that could be a good, piece to have in the backfield. Um, you also have Pat Frymouth, who I think is a good tight end. I just think this makes sense from the Steelers side to get a quarterback to compete in a tough division, and to start off a new era in Pittsburgh. Taking Sam Leavitt, I could definitely see that.
I totally agree with you on the Steelers point. It feels like the Steelers are kind of one of those teams that's always stuck in limbo when it comes to quarterbacks, when it comes to really everything outside of the defense. There's a lot to figure out in Pittsburgh, and their last few attempts to
Quarterbacks.
get a franchise quarterback really haven't worked out. But I believe that Levitt really does bring that confidence and that edge that Steelers fans would absolutely love. And I believe that his arm talent, his ability to improvise is completely different from what a Kenny Pickett or a Mason Rudolph brought to the table. I believe he would show something different for the Steelers organization, a lot like he would for like a LA Rams or somebody like that. So yeah, I think that
I
there are
think
many NFL teams that would be fits for him. It's obviously there's obviously not too many options on the table because obviously there's a lot of franchise quarterbacks that are already locked in. Like if you look at a San Francisco 49ers, for example, he would be a strong fit with the Niners under Kyle Shanahan, but they already obviously have Brock Purdy locked in for the foreseeable future. Um, Houston Texans, for example, CJ Stroud is obviously locked in there. Uh, but a lot of the teams that have potential openings at quarterback or are obviously going to have openings, he would be a strong fit to play for. At the end of
I
the
could.
day, that just shows. Go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to mention is I could see kind of a Jordan Love situation happening with Levitt, where Jordan Love, the current star for the Packers, to kind of go back in time when he got drafted, he went to Green Bay, which was not a fit most people had for him because they had Aaron Rodgers. I could see that with Levitt of him going to a place. I do want to mention his team very quickly, but the Cowboys, what are they doing with Dak? There's some questions about the future. Levitt's a big play quarterback. Jerry Jones, I think, could like that. You have CeeDee Lamb, so that is another team I could see him going to a place like I don't see San Francisco, Houston, but a team like that, maybe Detroit. I don't know, but I could see him kind of going to a team that could be unexpected just to have that upside.
Absolutely, that's a good point. And that to me, like I was saying, I've said countless times, that's really a testament to the culture that Kenny Dillingham has built. He's really built a team first mentality in Tempe that's very predicated on player development, players showing out each and every day for one another, building that brotherhood, and all that stuff is essential to the NFL level. Uh, as we all see, the most successful NFL teams are the most connected NFL teams. We even saw that with the Commanders last season. They made the NFC title game despite not being all that talented relative to the rest of the NFL. They were really locked in from game week one last season, and that might not continue this season, but that just shows you what kind of players the NFL looks for. And Sam Levitt falls right in that perfect middle ground of having extreme confidence and being that truly being there for his teammates and being having the requisite talent to play at the NFL level. So there are a lot of places that really could be strong fits for him in the foreseeable future, whether it's next season or 2027. I do believe that Sam Levitt will be playing on Sundays for a long time and as a starting quarterback as well. Uh, that's really all we have for today's episode. Just want to thank you so much for tuning in today. And Tanner, if you have anything else to add before we depart, go right ahead.
Yeah, I guess just one final note here. Not a team, but I just think with Levitt that one thing you sometimes see in the NFL is the regression of these kind of young quarterbacks. And it's hard to sometimes say where they end up. For instance, Mac Jones with New England, he had a great rookie season, then regressed. Kenny Pickett, like you mentioned, had a solid rookie season, then regressed. So it's hard to say. Even with these quarterbacks now, Jane Daniels and Bo Nix were both great the rookie season. We'll see how they do, hoping for the best for them because they're fun to watch. But you never really know. Regression does happen, and it's hard to predict in the NFL. Sometimes it's random. Sometimes you can tell with the tape. I do think with Sam Levitt, we mentioned the physical traits, him as a leader. That's very important. But his just really progression. I really felt like last season you saw him kind of get better time over time. Like you said, he was this breakout starter, and he is someone that I think is going to be in the league for a while, not just because of physical traits, but because of his mentality. And I think teams are going to really value that. Even if Sam Levitt, say a Baker Mayfield happens, who his first team doesn't work out, he could rebound like we've seen Baker Mayfield on the Bucks. Like I could see that with Levitt. I think he's someone that I think is always looking to improve his game. I don't think that's going to change at the NFL level. I think he's going to continue putting in that hard work, continuing to do that, and I just think that's something that's huge in the NFL with these young quarterbacks. Is not okay. Yes, the traits are super important, but how have they gone from year to year? And I know you're expecting a really big year with Levitt. I'm as well. I think he'll have a very nice season, and I think that's just a very big piece. It's intangible, but that work ethic you can just really see it and feel it. And I think that's just is a big thing for the NFL.
Absolutely. That was a very, very good point, and we're going to leave you with that on that note today. Thank you so much for tuning in today once again. Uh, your support is what keeps us going, and thank you so much for joining me once again today, Tanner. It was a great discussion, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, take care, everyone.